Hey all, welcome to our very fourth episode of the Stay at Home Son podcast. Today we have a very special guest and someone who I am really looking forward to talk to. We're talking to a longtime independent filmmaker, Wig Wolf. He has such an interesting style, such an interesting promotion technique, and just so many cool things. So welcome to the show, Wig Wolf. Happy to have you, man.
Hi, nice to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. So I think the first question I have for you is, you're a filmmaker who has a very interesting style and a very surreal type style, but you blend humor with it and just all sorts of cool stuff. So how did you get into filmmaking? And also, how did you find that unique style?
Um, I just, I think over, I've always done like experimental fiction writing and poetry and music since I was in high school, and I was always inspired by like outsider punk stuff and um, just a lot of weird underground movies and trauma. And I think a few years ago, I didn't start making films really until pretty later in life. Maybe in 2019, I got like a mini DV camcorder, um, and I just started making videos with it and putting them on YouTube, like short videos, like just messing around and using dolls and different toys I made, like some homemade dolls and some like Barbie dolls, and then I did that for a while, like, and was interviewing different underground musicians, but doing it like on a doll show and making dolls of them, and then recording the interviews and like editing it together. And then after doing that for a while, I got it, felt like making trying to make like a feature length film, and that's how I made my first movie, The Wet Ones, which is mainly a doll movie, even though it has some actors green screened into it. And then I just kind of like, then I made The Wizard of Oz a couple years later. But yeah, so I just kind of like, it was an evolution of like other, like weird fiction and music I'd been doing for a long time.
Cool. So you kind of blended in that music with the filmmaking because it's definitely a unique style, man. I enjoy watching it.
Yeah, and I've always liked doing visual art too, just like, paintings and drawings, kind of like done some underground comics in the past. So yeah, just always like kind of doing experimental stuff just for like fun and trying to put it out and share it.
For
Yeah, I
sure.
think definitely in the movie the visuals really hooked me in because I knew it was going to be a good movie when I watched it for the first time and I saw like the opening scenes with like the with like the Dorothy having the blood coming out of his eyes. I was like getting anxiety attacks from the beginning, so I'm like, wow, this is gonna be a really good movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I worked that was something I did. I did all the practical effects myself, just kind of like I didn't really have a background in that, so I just kind of made it up as I went along. And I had like a practice makeup head that I got at the thrift store that they use at like beauty schools, and then I drilled tubes into that and made the whole thing with the blood coming out of the eyes, and then I put latex and stuff over it to kind of make the messed up face.
Yeah.
Oh wow, so you're doing all your own effects too? Because I think that's like one of the hard. I think personally, just like when Jake and I were doing our movie, that was like one of the more harder parts for us was like more like finding like visuals and like making like all the effects and stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, that's what I just kind of tried to have everything be DIY because I wanted like um like when I made the movie I wanted it to be like as much as like my vision as possible. So I wanted to kind of like like I pretty much wanted to do everything and have it all be my style, like from the backgrounds, like I made the set and just pretty much did everything I could myself. I mean, the in the Wizard of Oz, the score was done by someone else, only because a friend of mine was an aspiring musician and he kind of wanted to try scoring a movie, so I figured I'd let him do it. So, like for the most part, the music was the only thing I didn't do in that one.
And with that surreal style you have, it must be kind of difficult getting actors to kind of like go in and be a part of that vision. And it seems like when at least in the Wizard of Oz, those actors seem extremely locked in and really like they were enjoying being on that set. So how did you find that group of people who are willing to get in there with that vision you have?
That was just kind of random. I mean, the one Dorothy who's in plays Dorothy in most of it, I found her on Backstage, like a casting website, and I just kind of described the project and hired her through that, kind of like without really knowing her. And and she got into it. And but as you can tell, at some point, or there's two actresses playing Dorothy, because before we were finished, we kind of had like a falling out, so I had to get the actress who played the Good Witch to finish out the Dorothy parts I hadn't shot.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that.
So like if you see in the spaghetti scene, that's the different actress playing Dorothy than in earlier scenes in the movie. But like since it was out of order, it kind of switches back and forth between the two actresses a lot.
Yeah, because I thought the Dorothy looked different in that spaghetti scene, and we're gonna talk about that spaghetti scene because that was definitely an interesting scene, man. It definitely I had spaghetti a few days after that. I definitely was thinking a little different after it, man. The spaghetti baby, spaghetti baby. So if you want to tell us a little bit about what the thought process was behind that scene, because I thought it was just so like bizarre, uncanny, but also kind of funny at the same time. I really enjoyed it. It definitely stuck with me that scene.
Oh yeah, that I don't know. I'm trying to remember because I feel like there was a really specific movie that had an eating scene.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it
and
was
the Wizard of Oz, your rendition of the Wizard of Oz.
it's like um I don't know. It was something, a movie that had spaghetti in it. Oh, you know what it was? Have you ever seen the John Waters movie Female Trouble with Divine?
No, I can't say I have.
There was a scene in that where Divine's like her bratty daughter, like Divine is having these people over for a dinner party, and she makes all these huge bowls of spaghetti, and the her bratty daughter comes out and is like cursing her out, and then takes the spaghetti and throws it against the wall.
Oh,
And
so it came from somewhere. That idea stemmed. That's so cool.
and I always really just liked that scene for like it was just kind of random, her having just make a big pile of spaghetti for these people trying to impress them, and they're like these socialites. And like so when I made the movie, I kind of wanted to sort of homage that, but then like multiply it and just do like 10 times more spaghetti and just have it really like go overboard on the spaghetti.
Yeah, that was that. This is a random question, but like, how long did it take to cook all that spaghetti? I mean, those are some big pot, those are some big bowls filled up to the top, and there was spaghetti throughout the movie too. I mean, in the scene where the witch melts, there was having spaghetti, and it was crazy.
Yeah, that was I think I had someone while I was like setting up the scene while we were filming. Some of the people working on the movie were in the kitchen because I had it set in my garage, so it was like pretty close to the kitchen in my house. And um, so they were in there just like with four pots boiling and setting it up for me. So I just kind of had them doing that while I was like preparing everything else.
Got you.
I think the one thing I like about that scene was that it took me a little bit to figure it out, but like I think the movie starts to come like full circle at that point because like in the beginning she's playing with the Tin Man and the Lion dolls, and then she's like meeting them in that scene. I'm like, oh, that's why she was so traumatized by that. So I think my question that I had all throughout the entire movie was, is she schizophrenic? Because that's kind of the impression I got from that. It was like jumps from like one scene to another, and she obviously has like a bad mental state as she's going through like the forest and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily I meant her to be schizophrenic, but I definitely meant her to be very like emotionally and mentally disturbed person. I mean, I think um yeah, so it was definitely like maybe more like closer to psychotic or just kind of unhinged. And yeah, so yeah, I'd say like that, like definitely mentally disturbed.
For sure. And I just got a question. Where are you based out of, Wolf? Where did you film most of that movie at? Like what state or country?
In Houston, Texas. So I'm out kind of like on the outskirts of Houston. I'm actually right by NASA, where the NASA Space Center is. So I'm kind of there, and I live like where I live, it's right there's like a swamp, like a bunch of swamps. And so a lot of the Wizard of Oz was just filmed in the in the swamps near my house where you can just kind of go there and there's no one there. So I was able to film just kind of
I,
like uninterrupted.
I was thinking about too. That was like my second thought after I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna like give me panic attacks throughout the whole movie." I was like, "Wait a minute, she's not in Kansas, is she?"
No, that's definitely not Kansas.
Yeah, it's like just out in these. There's just like all these trails of swamps around here, and if you're out there in the summer, there's like gators and wild hogs all over. They're just like all over the place.
That is so cool. Did y'all ever have anyone walk up on y'all while you were filming that? Because we were filming one of our feature films and we had to film at like a public location that was like wooded, but like we were hoping not a lot of people came, but sometimes people did come. Did y'all ever have the people walk up on that set and it was like a kind of hard to explain?
No, luckily where it was. I mean, it's a place I'd go hang out sometimes, and like I I walked there all the time. Pretty much never encountered anyone, so I just like I figured nobody would ever come out, and like so luckily like no one came up upon us then.
Oh, that's perfect. And I have a question for you too, because I've noticed by looking at your Instagram, I think all of us filmmakers have a hard time figuring out how we want to sell our movies. Do we want to go streaming? Do we want to go digital? It looks like you're doing pretty good selling like DVDs on eBay. So how did you start doing that? And got any tips for filmmakers on doing that? Because I feel like physical media is something a lot of independent filmmakers don't even think about as a way to sell their product.
Yeah, that was just I did that with the Wet Ones when that came out. I sold DVDs, and then for the Wizard of Oz, I did VHS and DVD because the Wet Ones was too long to fit on a tape. So I had tapes made. There's a company called Cryptic Carousel that will make runs of VHS tapes, and I followed so many different random artists. So like I had an artist I follow who does a lot of cool designs for like physical media. I had him make the covers for me, and then I use this website for the DVDs. I use this website called Kunaki where you can pretty much like upload all your info, like the video file and your covers and information, and then make it so it's order on demand. So like you can just like if someone orders the DVD through your eBay store, then you can just put the order in through Kunaki and ship it directly, and then they manufacture the DVD to order. So like that way you don't have like a bunch of inventory up front if you don't want to, but you can also order wholesale from Kunaki if you want to like bring it to a convention or something.
So it's kind of like Shopify, but for movies where it's like print on demand type stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And do you where do you normally sell it at? Do you have like do you sell a lot online or do you go to like festivals and kind of like sell it out of there on that way? Is that the main way you would do it?
Yeah, I mainly do it online, like because I used to for a long time I sold on eBay just for regular like reselling. So I already had an established store on there, so I just started listing my DVDs in my regular store and my merch. So I had that, and like there's lots of other selling sites people use, but I'm just familiar with eBay, so I just kind of like stick with that.
Yeah, I kind of like the eBay too because I feel like it gives it more of a personal feel too because I feel like you're buying it straight from the person. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I noticed how you were doing so well selling your own copies of your DVDs on eBay. So that's definitely some cool tips you just gave for sure.
Yeah, and I like eBay because it has a global market. So like you'll get sales in like Japan or France, just really random countries.
Do you ever just get like random like buys that you didn't even like have a conversation with before? Or was it normally like you went to go try to sell it and they bought it, or did you ever just have someone out the blue buy it? Because I always wondered about that too.
Yeah, I've had a lot of just total like blind buys and people who didn't know who I was. Like this guy, who's a sound mixer in LA, he bought the VHS of my movie and watched it with like never knowing who I was, and then he messaged me on eBay, and then we ended up becoming friends, and like now he's gonna do the sound mixing on my current feature when it's finished.
That's so cool. So you're like making connections while also selling. Man, you're living the dream with that for sure.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, I've had people do the blind buys, and then when they see the movie, they like really hate it and leave me like a bad feedback because they're like angry, but that happens, but actually it doesn't happen that often. I mean, but I've had that happen too.
Yeah, especially when you're making like experimental films. Some people just might not. I mean, we made a found footage film recently, which I guess is more in the normal genre, but it's still a little bit different than the average. And we already had some hate on Reddit for it. So yeah, I feel like if you put yourself out there, there's always going to be someone who has something to say about your film. But you know, at the end of the day, a negative review is still a view. So
Yeah, that's how I see it. I mean, like on Letterboxd, on both my movies, especially the wet ones, it's like I have a pretty even split of like 1 star and 5 star, and like a lot of people just like would go on these really angry rants, like watching the movie like made them like really pissed off, and I always kind of think it's like kind of funny that they got that mad because like I would just like turn a movie off if I like hated it, like
yeah.
but
So one of the things I was just kind of wondering is like, where did you come up with like the idea to have like her like married to Toto the dog, and then for him to kind of like come out as like the one that's trying to like, you know, I'm trying to find the word for it, like when he comes out as like the kind of like the good witch towards the end, because like in the original films it's like, oh, he's the cute dog she's walking with in Kansas and Oz or whatever. So would you come up with the idea for him to be like the bigger, like to kind of like subvert your expectation and be like the bigger part of the movie and to play like a huge role in her dilapidated mental state?
well, originally I think that like I just kind of randomly had the idea of making my own version of the Wizard of Oz, and but I didn't have like a story in mind. And then when I was writing it, I there's this writer from the 50s I liked named Flannery O'Connor who would write these short stories that were kind of about Catholicism and Catholic guilt, and like people kind of like torturing themselves, like putting rocks in their shoes and like wrapping their bodies in thorns and all this kind of like brutal self-abuse stuff. And so then I had the idea of incorporating that and making like a Flannery O'Connor version of the Wizard of Oz, and then I think the rest just kind of grew out of that, like finding the reasons for why Dorothy was so tormented, and like and then I knew the Toto character, he's just a dog in the original, so I didn't and know there's much you could do with him, so I just kind of decided to remake him as this kind of like abusive, like narcissistic, manipulative person. And I just thought the contrast of having him be a puppy but be this like total like dirtbag, like manipulative person was kind of like funny to me, like the contrast, I guess.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how Toto had such a more of a role than he ever did in any of the original versions. So that was definitely a cool take. I enjoyed seeing Toto more, and he was in a way it was the antagonist for it was a very interesting film. I really enjoyed it. It was one that I had to watch again just to kind of because the first time you watch it, you're just like, what in the world did I just watch? But then you watch it again and you really appreciate it. I like how you're able to just take those liberties and say, you know what, this is the way I see it. This is the way we're gonna do it. So I think it's pretty interesting, man. I really do enjoy your work and what you're doing. But speaking of that, what new projects are you working on right now? I know you were telling me something about a basketball player that you were a video you were about to do on that. So want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, that's a movie, a feature I've been working on for a while. That it's called Gayness of the Breath, and that title, it comes from this thing that a friend of mine from college who used to always text me like really stupid insults out of nowhere, and one time he texted me like like you have gayness of the breath, and it always kind of stuck in my head, so I decided to like use it as a title. And then um yeah, and then I just kind of came up with a story, which I have like an outline of the plot, but like the rest of it is all kind of improvised, and it's about like a Serbian Olympics basketball player who's like kind of like a disgrace and banished from the sport, and he lives next door to this little cat puppet who's an abstract artist who's also like kind of like a disgrace in the art world, and they're neighbors, and they just kind of like strongly dislike each other and are drawn to each other, and it's kind of like a character study. Like it's, I wouldn't say it's so plot heavy. It's more just about like these two bizarre characters, and they're kind of like weird obsession with each other.
That sounds really interesting. Is that going to be a feature or a short by chance?
It'll be a feature. I'm not sure how long it will be at it. It might be as long as The Wizard of Oz, maybe about like 60 minutes, or it could be an hour and a half. Like I'm not sure until I do the final edit what it will come out to, but that's what I'm anticipating. Probably no longer than 90 minutes.
Nice. And I noticed that you have a screening coming up at Whammy Analog Media in Los Angeles, California. So congrats on that. You want to elaborate on that a little bit too?
Oh yeah, yeah. Whammy's a place. It's like a full service VHS shop that's in LA, and the guy who I befriended who bought my movie online, he lives there, and he was telling me about it, and like for like a fairly cheap rate, you can host movie screenings there, and so um, I decided it'd be cool to kind of like see, try to host one and see how it goes, and so it was just kind of like random, and like I've had maybe it show at a couple of festivals before that I entered, but I just kind of like felt like having another screening done and thought it'd be cool to have it done in LA. So, and since the rate was so low, I thought it was worth trying.
Yeah, well, congratulations getting a film screened and having a screen like that's always been a goal of me and Thomas's. So I appreciate you telling us that information. I'm happy that you're able to do that. That'll be a really cool experience for you for sure.
So like I have to know out of curiosity because like I'm still very new into like the film and acting world. So when you do your movies and stuff, like I was honestly like wondering like all throughout like when I was watching Wizard of Oz, like and do you when you like have your actors like on set, do they like go into the scene? They're like, okay, Dorothy, this is like what generally has to happen. Like, go with it, or do they like get a script beforehand?
I mean, I gave them a script beforehand, so they had an idea of their lines. But as far as the direction goes, like I kind of was like pretty hands off. Like I just told them to like, kind of like take the dialogue in the scene and just do what they think was right. Like I didn't really like, besides like, I mean, I was filming everything, so I was there with the camera filming them, but like generally, besides telling them where to stand, or like I generally didn't give them any direction beyond that. Like I just kind of let them come up with their own thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like it's nice because my directing style is I kind of like to do a lot of improv with my actors. I kind of like to get that natural, realistic vibe. I just think it works best, especially on like more unique kind of projects like what you do. It's like it's so loose formed and it's so like open. So I feel like it's good to let the actors just kind of have free reign with the lines and stuff. So I definitely could tell. And I just like I said, I really thought the actors did a good job in the Wizard of Oz. They looked like they were really into it. They looked like they were really living the film. So that says a lot about you as a director, able to get such a avant-garde like style, but getting everyone locked in with it and wanted to see that vision through. So props to you for that for sure.
Yeah, I was happy with it. I mean, my first movie, since it was mostly dolls and me doing the voices, like I didn't have to really have any experience too much working with actors and on like a full size scale. So part of making that was like I really wanted to just experience that, and like I didn't really have any specific plan, but I thought it worked out really well. Just like even a lot of the line flubbing and different things, kind of like I just kind of like let it went with the flow and didn't, like there's a lot of parts where the Dorothy actress pronounced words in a strange way, and I didn't like correct her or tell her to do it over. I just thought it was kind of funny.
Right, you just kind of let it kind of play out how it was going to play out. That's really cool. But
And
yeah, did you have a question, Thomas, or?
Um, I think just my last question is why the Wizard of Oz? Did you like watch the Wizard of Oz one day and like, this is a good movie to put like a horror twist on?
I mean, it's just something I always liked, like the original movie and Return the Oz from the 80s, but I think it was mainly because I really like doing like bright, saturated colors in my stuff visually, and I guess the Wizard of Oz is just something like I associate with that sort of look. And like I just knew after I made the wet ones, I wanted to try making something else, but I didn't really necessarily have an idea. So I just kind of was like, decided to just take something that already existed and then get inspiration from that. And like, so it was just kind of like a random impulse to do it. But, um, and I think because I'm a fan of David Lynch and one of his movies, Wild at Heart, he has a lot of random Wizard of Oz imagery threaded throughout the movie, and that always really like stuck with me. So I think it was partly like an homage to that. Like he kind of already did like his surreal, violent take on the Wizard of Oz with Wild at Heart, but it's a lot more like subtle and not so obvious.
And you wanted to go all the way into that surrealism that you kind of got inspired by David Lynch with his that gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah,
And
and I think also, I guess John Waters, early in his career, he tried making a Wizard of Oz movie, and the project fell apart. But there was like some still photos of his friends walking around the woods, like dressed in the costumes, and like I think part of it was like, oh, like I could try to like do my John Waters Wizard of Oz sort of, and like finish it since he didn't get to.
cool. So it's kind of like an idea that you had from someone else's idea that they never got to finish. That's pretty cool. That's an interesting way to get an idea for sure. I had never really talked to anyone that got it from like a idea that wasn't actually fully formed. So that's pretty cool that you were able to take that and make it to your own thing. And I guess the last question I have for you, Wig Wolf, today, and I always try to ask people this is, with you being a successful longtime director, what's like the four biggest pieces of advice you would give to anyone who's in filmmaking right now or wants to get into filmmaking to have success as a director, filmmaker?
I mean, I guess just to like, um, like utilize like social media and for like to build like like a following and get visibility and just kind of um always put your stuff out there. So, and I think also like you said about the physical media, I think making like interesting physical media with good cover designs that will draw people in is good, because like a lot of times people have just bought my stuff for their collections and like never even watched the movie, but like they kind of like having it as like a piece of art almost. And I think with making movies, to just kind of try to, I mean, if you're doing it really DIY and like don't have a lot of resources, to like plan from the beginning to always make it as easy as you can on yourself, because it's like always going to be a big undertaking, so you kind of have to like try to do yourself as many favors as possible, like in the script. Keep in mind like writing it in a way that it's going to be like possible for you to do the scenes in a way you're happy with, and like not write beyond your means, like to something that might require a larger budget or crew, like just to like keep it as easy as yourself on possible, and like to not really be a perfectionist and just kind of like go with the flow and get it done. And not like there's a lot of parts of Wizard of Oz where like I felt like the filming didn't go at all like how I envisioned it, but it came, in the end it came out like fine. Like the spaghetti scene probably wasn't totally like how I pictured it when I was making it up, but like the result was like good enough and people liked it.
But yeah, like I said, I really thought it was interesting, and I really like what you're doing, Will Wolf. And I also really appreciate you for coming on the podcast today. I'm
I'll just
excited
say
to
it's one.
share this. Yeah, you can go ahead, Thomas.
I was just gonna say as one last thought. That's probably like one of those scenes, like Jake said, like you have to watch like 2 or 3 times before you're fully like, oh, I get it. But it was really scary.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend personally, as just someone who watched The Wizard of Oz, you definitely want to watch his movie 2 or 3 times to really get the whole feel of it, because it's definitely something that you won't be able to completely comprehend first watch, but it will definitely leave you wanting more. So it's perfect to go back and rewatch. I really enjoyed watching it. And Wig Wolf, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I wish you all the best with your career moving forward. And y'all make sure to follow him at Wig Wolf on Instagram. I'll link all his stuff below in the description. And if you're in LA, go be sure to go check him out at his screening. And that's going to be so cool. And I'm really proud of you, man. So thanks for coming on.
All right, well, it's nice talking to you guys. I appreciate you having me on, and I let me know when you post the episode, and I'll share it.
Will do, man. All the best.
All right, you too. Have a good rest of your day.
You too, man.